Nobody expected the loudest laughter in the arena to become the sound everyone would remember with shame. The Long Beach International Martial Arts Championship had been completely sold out for weeks. It was the autumn of 1972, and over 10,000 people had packed into the California venue to see what newspapers were calling the greatest martial arts tournament ever hosted on American soil. The atmosphere was charged with electricity. Flags hung from the high rafters. Television cameras broadcasted from every corner. Photographers kneeled around the elevated fighting platform, their fingers hovering over camera shutters. Karate experts in white uniforms sat next to kung fu teachers in dark silk jackets. There were judo coaches, boxing trainers, military combat instructors, Hollywood producers, students, families, and children riding on their fathers' shoulders. Everyone had gathered for one purpose: to see if anyone could finally halt the unbeaten heavyweight karate champion. His name was Victor Kaine, but the audience no longer called him Victor. They called him the most powerful fighter alive. For nearly 5 years, no one had managed to defeat him, not in sanctioned tournaments, not in private challenges, not in public exhibitions, and not even in the brutal, secret matches that promoters pretended did not occur. He had dismantled national champions. He had knocked out military combatants. He had embarrassed kung fu instructors. He had beaten men much larger than himself, and he had accomplished all of this with a savagery that made people too afraid to turn away. Victor Kaine did not merely win, he made his opponents regret ever stepping in front of him. On that night, his newest opponent had been promoted as the one man large enough to be a real challenge. He was a massive Hawaiian karate fighter named Makoa Reyes, nearly twice the width of a normal man, with arms like tree trunks and a neck like a bull. Before the fight, journalists had surrounded Makoa by the locker room. "Are you afraid of Victor Kaine?" Makoa had grinned. "No." Then he had looked toward the arena and added, "But he should be afraid of me." The audience believed him for less than a minute. When the bell rang, Makoa surged forward with tremendous power. Victor allowed him to come. He did not retreat. He did not circle away. He simply stood in the middle of the platform watching the giant close the gap. Then Victor attacked. One kick to the knee, one punch to the ribs, one elbow across the jaw. Makoa's whole body twisted in the air before crashing down onto the canvas. The impact was sickening. The referee rushed in. Makoa attempted to rise. His hands quivered. His eyes rolled back. His legs refused to respond. The referee waved both arms. The fight was finished. Victor Kaine had won again. In less than 60 seconds, the arena erupted. People leaped from their seats. Commentators shouted until their voices went hoarse. "Victor Kaine has done it again. No one can touch him. The strongest fighter alive remains undefeated." Victor stood over the fallen giant and slowly raised both arms. He smiled. Not a humble smile, not a champion's smile, but a cruel one. He turned toward the crowd as if the entire arena was his personal property. And at that moment, he made a mistake that would alter everything. He did not bow to his opponent. He did not thank the referee. He did not celebrate with any discipline. Instead, he approached the microphone. The announcer paused before handing it over, but Victor snatched it from his hand. The arena gradually quieted down. Victor scanned the thousands of faces, then laughed. "I am tired of this." The audience cheered. He pointed down at Makoa, who was still being assisted by 2 officials. "Every year they bring me someone bigger." Mori laughed. "Every year they bring me someone stronger." He turned slowly. "And every year," he leaned toward the microphone, "they fall." The crowd roared. Victor let the noise build, then lifted one hand to demand silence. "I don't want another champion," he declared. The crowd murmured. "I don't want another professional." He smiled wider. "I want someone from the audience." At first, everyone laughed, thinking it was entertainment, a showman's insult, but Victor was not joking. His eyes began moving through the crowd, scanning, evaluating, hunting. He wanted someone who looked weak, someone he could humiliate, whose embarrassment would make him seem even grander under the lights. The cameras followed his gaze, row by row, face by face. Then he stopped. Near the front row, sitting between an elderly Chinese master and a young student, was a quiet man dressed in a simple black Chinese kung fu jacket and black trousers. He was slim, calm, and motionless. No championship belt, no entourage, no loud conversation. He was not trying to be noticed. He was simply observing. Victor smiled. There, the spotlight shifted. The camera zoomed in. Thousands of people turned to look. Victor pointed directly at the unassuming man. "You." The man did not react. The crowd began laughing before anything had even happened. Victor leaned over the ropes. "Yes, you," Maury laughed. "You look brave sitting there." The man slowly lifted his eyes. His face remained composed, showing no fear, no anger, no embarrassment. Victor laughed even harder. "I have heard people call you a legend." The crowd suddenly grew louder. Some people recognized the subject of the insult, others did not. Victor continued, "You don't even look like a fighter." Maury laughter rolled through the arena. The quiet man remained seated. Victor stepped down from the platform and walked toward him. Photographers rushed behind him. Television cameras swung violently to capture the confrontation. Officials exchanged nervous glances. Nobody was sure if this was still part of the performance. Victor stopped directly in front of the man, only a few feet away. He looked down at him. "You," the quiet man said nothing. Victor pointed a finger inches from his face. "Stand up." Still nothing. "Or admit you are afraid." The arena erupted. People shouted, some laughed, others began chanting Victor's name. The elderly master sitting beside the quiet man leaned closer and whispered, "Do not answer him." The quiet man smiled faintly. "I didn't come here to fight." His voice was soft, almost too soft for the microphones. "I came here to learn." The crowd laughed again. Victor turned toward them and spread his arms. "You hear that?" He looked back down. "He came to learn." Then his smile disappeared. "Then learn this." He suddenly kicked the chair. The metal legs scraped violently across the floor. The entire front row gasped. The quiet man remained seated, but the atmosphere changed instantly. Several martial arts masters stood up. Tournament officials rushed forward. The announcer tried to speak into another microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm." Victor grabbed that microphone too. "If this man is really what people say he is," he pointed down, "let him prove it." A wave of noise crashed across the arena. "Fight, fight, fight!" The chant grew until the walls seemed to shake. The quiet man finally stood, not quickly, not dramatically. He simply rose to his feet and silence fell as if someone had pulled the sound from the building. Victor's smile flickered. For the first time, standing face to face, he noticed something odd. The man was not angry nor nervous. He looked disappointed. That bothered Victor more than fear would have. The man looked around the arena, at the children watching from the upper rows, at the students in white uniforms leaning forward with wide eyes, at the old masters who understood that something sacred was being dragged toward a spectacle. Then he looked back at Victor. A real martial artist. His voice was quiet, but every microphone caught it. "Never fights to impress a crowd." Victor smirked. "Then impress me." The man lowered his gaze for a moment, then said, "If we fight, it will be because you leave me no other choice." Victor stepped closer. "Good." He raised his finger again, pressing it directly into the man's chest. "Then choose." The arena held its breath. Somewhere near the front row, the elderly Chinese master closed his eyes. He knew. A few others knew, but most of the crowd still did not. The quiet man looked down at the finger touching his chest, then back into Victor's eyes. "Remove your hand," Victor laughed. "Or what?" The man said nothing. Victor pushed harder. "Or what?" For the first time that night, the quiet man's expression shifted, not into anger, but into something colder, cleaner, more decisive. He said, "My name is Bruce Lee." The words struck the arena like thunder. A wave of shock moved through the crowd. Some people stood, others gasped. Photographers who had been pushing closer suddenly froze. The commentators stopped speaking. Even Victor's eyes narrowed. Bruce Lee repeated the name with contempt, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. Bruce gently removed Victor's finger from his chest. Not violently, not dramatically, just enough. Then he stepped past him toward the platform. Victor turned. "Where are you going?" Bruce climbed the steps. "To finish what you started." The arena erupted again, but this time the sound was different. It was not laughter. It was disbelief, excitement, fear. Every martial artist in the room could feel the change. Victor Kaine had challenged a quiet stranger. Now that stranger stood under the lights as Bruce Lee. The referee tried to regain control. "This is not part of the tournament schedule." Victor climbed back into the ring. "Make it official." The promoter rushed over. "Victor, we cannot just..." Victor snapped. "I said make it official." Bruce stood silently in the corner. The promoter turned toward him. "Mr. Lee, you are under no obligation to accept this." Bruce nodded. "I know." Then Bruce looked at Victor, then at the thousands of people watching. "I walk away now," he paused. "Some of these students will think restraint is weakness." He folded his hands calmly. "I cannot allow that lesson to be taught." The referee swallowed. What rules? Victor answered immediately. Full contact. The crowd roared. Bruce shook his head. 1 round, Victor laughed. 1 round, Bruce nodded. 1 round is enough. Victor stepped toward him. You think you can beat me in 1 round? Bruce answered softly. No. The arena fell silent again. Bruce continued. I think you will understand before the round ends. The sentence moved through the arena like a blade sliding from its sheath. Victor's face darkened. He raised his fists. Bruce stood in a relaxed sideways stance, loose, balanced, almost effortless. The referee stepped between them, sweating heavily. Gentlemen, fight clean. Follow my commands. Stop when I tell you. Victor never looked away from Bruce. I'm going to make you regret standing up. Bruce's eyes remained calm. No, he said quietly. You are going to regret sitting above everyone else for too long. The referee stepped back. The bell rang. Victor Kaine charged forward, and in the first second, every person inside the Long Beach arena realized the most dangerous fight of the night had never been on the schedule. Victor Kaine exploded forward the instant the bell rang, not with patience, not with strategy, but with violence. His first step shook the wooden platform. His second step covered nearly half the ring. By the third, his right fist was already flying toward Bruce Lee's head with enough force to end most fights before they truly began. The audience screamed. Several women covered their eyes. Children stood on their seats. Photographers leaned so far over the ropes that tournament officials had to pull them back. Everyone expected the same ending they had seen 50 times before. 1 punch, 1 knockout, 1 more victim. But Bruce Lee never looked at Victor's fist. His eyes remained fixed on Victor's center, his shoulders, his hips, his breathing, because Bruce understood something Victor never did. Hands don't tell the truth, the body does. Victor's shoulder tightened a fraction of a second before the punch arrived. His right hip rotated, his left heel lifted from the canvas. Bruce had already seen the attack before Victor himself had fully committed to it. The punch arrived like a cannonball. Bruce moved less than 6 inches, not backward, but diagonal. Victor's fist sliced through empty air so close that it brushed a single strand of Bruce's hair, nothing else. A collective gasp rolled through the arena. Victor stumbled half a step, not enough to lose balance, just enough to realize he had missed. Bruce remained exactly where he wanted to be, relaxed, hands low, almost casual. Victor turned immediately, a smile spread across his face. You got lucky. Bruce looked at him calmly. No, I was simply where your punch wasn't. The crowd laughed softly. Victor's smile disappeared. He attacked again, this time faster. A left jab, right cross, left hook, spinning elbow. Every strike flowed into the next without pause. These combinations had destroyed national champions, military instructors, and professional karate fighters. Bruce didn't block, he didn't absorb, he didn't clash. He simply disappeared from every attack. 1 inch, half a step, a slight turn of the waist, a relaxed shift of weight. Every movement looked impossibly small, yet every punch missed. Commentators stopped talking. One whispered, I don't understand. An elderly Wing Chun master quietly answered from the front row. That's because you're watching Bruce's hands. You should be watching his feet. Nearly 20 seconds passed. Victor hadn't touched Bruce once. His breathing became heavier. Bruce's breathing never changed. Victor frowned. He had expected resistance. Instead, he was chasing smoke. You afraid to hit me? Victor shouted. Bruce smiled. I'm waiting for what? For you to stop fighting your own anger. Victor roared. The sound echoed through the arena. He charged again. This time he abandoned combinations. He relied on raw power, a crushing right hook. Bruce leaned away, a left uppercut. Bruce turned his shoulders, a knee toward Bruce's ribs. Bruce stepped outside the line. Victor followed with a spinning heel kick powerful enough to break bones. Bruce lowered his body. The kick passed inches above his head. The audience exploded. 8,000 people stood at once. They weren't cheering for violence anymore. They were cheering for something they had never seen. Perfect control, perfect timing, perfect calm. Victor's face reddened, sweat poured from his forehead. He looked toward the referee. Is he going to fight or keep running? The referee looked at Bruce. Bruce answered first. I'm not running. Victor laughed. Really? Bruce nodded. If I were running, you wouldn't still be standing where I wanted you. Victor blinked. What? Bruce pointed quietly toward the center of the platform. You followed me exactly where I led you. Several Grand Masters exchanged surprised glances. One whispered, he doesn't even realize. Bruce has been controlling the ring from the first second. Victor looked down. For the first time he noticed, without realizing it, he had been chasing Bruce in circles. Bruce had never once been trapped, never once forced backward. Every movement had placed Victor exactly where Bruce wanted him. The realization lasted only a second, then pride buried it again. Victor growled, "No more games." He suddenly lunged forward, not with a punch but with both arms, a crushing bear hug, his signature technique, the move that had broken ribs, collapsed lungs, and separated shoulders. He wrapped both arms around Bruce's waist. The audience gasped. Finally, he had him. Victor squeezed, every muscle in his body tightened, his forearms bulged, his jaw clenched, veins stood out across his neck. Bruce didn't resist, didn't panic, didn't fight the pressure. He relaxed completely. His body softened like flowing water. Victor frowned. "What?" Bruce rotated his hips slightly. His left shoulder slipped free, then his right. One tiny step, one effortless turn. Suddenly, Victor's arms crushed nothing but empty air. Bruce was already standing beside him. The arena erupted. No, impossible. How did he escape? Even the referee stared in disbelief. Victor looked down at his own hands, still locked together, still squeezing, only now they were embracing nothing. Bruce gently adjusted the sleeve of his black kung fu jacket. "You rely on strength." Victor glared at him. "Because strength wins," Bruce nodded. For a while, those three words struck harder than any punch. Victor's breathing grew rougher. Bruce's remained calm. The elderly Chinese master who had recognized Bruce leaned toward one of his students. "Listen carefully." The young man nodded. "Victor believes fighting begins with power." The master smiled. "Bruce knows it begins with understanding." Victor had stopped listening. His pride had become louder than reason. He rushed forward again, this time with everything he had. His feet pounded against the canvas, his shoulders rolled forward, his right fist tightened, his eyes narrowed. He committed every ounce of strength into one devastating straight punch aimed directly at Bruce's face. The crowd screamed. Bruce didn't move immediately. He waited, not because he was slow, but because he was patient. The punch traveled closer, closer, closer. Then Bruce stepped only once. His body slipped just outside the attack. His left hand lightly touched Victor's wrist. His right palm rested against Victor's elbow. There was no explosion, no dramatic strike, only perfect timing. Victor suddenly felt something impossible. The floor vanished beneath him. His own momentum turned against him. His feet crossed. His balance disappeared. Bruce rotated his hips, not violently, but naturally. Victor's enormous body lifted completely off the platform. For one unbelievable second, the undefeated heavyweight champion floated in the air. Time seemed to stop. 8,000 spectators watched in complete silence. Then, boom, Victor crashed flat onto the wooden platform with a sound that echoed through the entire arena. The ring shook beneath them. Dust rose into the bright television lights. Several photographers instinctively lowered their cameras. They had forgotten to take the picture. They had been too shocked to move. Victor stared upward, his eyes wide, his lungs empty. For the first time in nearly 5 years, someone had thrown him, not with greater strength, not with greater size, but with something he had never learned to understand. Bruce quietly stepped backward, hands relaxed, face calm, no celebration, no arrogance, only silence. The referee looked from Bruce to Victor, then slowly began counting. The entire arena counted with him, not because they expected Victor to lose, but because for the first time in his career, they had seen fear in the eyes of the man everyone once believed was unbeatable. The referee reached 5. His voice echoed through the silent arena. Victor Kaine remained flat on the platform. His chest rose violently. Every breath felt like broken glass inside his ribs, not because Bruce Lee had struck him. Bruce hadn't. Victor had crashed into the floor because of his own attack, his own strength, his own momentum. For the first time in nearly 5 years, the strongest fighter alive had become a prisoner of his own power. 6, the referee continued. Victor planted one hand against the canvas. His arm trembled. The muscles that had terrified 50 opponents now shook beneath his own weight. Slowly, he forced himself onto one knee. The arena erupted with applause, not because they supported Victor, but because they respected determination. Bruce remained exactly where he was, hands relaxed, breathing slow. His eyes never left Victor. There was no hatred inside them, only patience. Victor finally stood. His legs felt strangely heavy. His vision blurred for a moment. He blinked twice. Bruce still hadn't changed his stance, still calm, still waiting. Victor clenched his fists. "You," his voice cracked. "You got lucky." Bruce smiled softly. "No," Victor's jaw tightened. "You can't keep avoiding me forever." Bruce tilted his head. "I haven't avoided you. I've been standing in front of you since the bell rang." The crowd laughed quietly. Victor heard it. Every laugh felt like another defeat. For years, people had laughed with him. Tonight, they were laughing at him. His pride couldn't bear it. He screamed, a sound filled with humiliation, anger, and fear. Without thinking, he charged again. This time there were no combinations, no strategy, no discipline, only rage. His punches came wildly, left, right, left, elbow, knee, back, fist. Every attack carried enormous power, every attack missed. Bruce moved less than before. A slight turn, half a step, a relaxed shoulder. Nothing dramatic, nothing flashy. Every movement seemed almost invisible. One television commentator whispered, "I don't understand." An elderly Okinawan master answered from the front row, "You aren't watching a fight." The commentator looked confused. "What am I watching?" The old master smiled. "You're watching a man defeat anger without becoming angry himself." Nearly another minute passed. Victor had thrown dozens more strikes. Bruce hadn't thrown a single punch, not one. The audience slowly stopped cheering altogether. Something strange was happening. The fight had become a lesson. Children leaned forward. Young karate students stared without blinking. Even famous instructors began watching Bruce's feet instead of his hands. One quietly whispered, "So that's why I've been wrong for 20 years. Victor finally stopped. His shoulders dropped. Sweat poured onto the wooden platform. His lungs burned. Bruce hadn't even begun breathing harder. Bruce looked at him kindly. "Finished?" Victor glared. "Never," Bruce nodded. "Good, I was hoping you'd say that." Victor frowned. "What?" Bruce slowly raised one hand, not into a fist, but an open hand. "Come." The invitation felt almost insulting. Victor roared louder than ever. He lowered his body. This time he decided everything would end with one attack. One perfect attack. No hesitation, no fear, no second chance. The elderly Chinese master who had recognized Bruce leaned toward his students. "Watch carefully," one student whispered. "Is Bruce finally going to attack?" The old master slowly shook his head. "No, he's waiting for the moment Victor defeats himself." Victor exploded forward. Every muscle in his body fired at once. His feet hammered against the platform. His hips rotated violently. His shoulder committed. His fist launched straight toward Bruce's jaw. The fastest punch he had thrown all night. Bruce didn't move immediately. He waited until the exact final heartbeat. Then one step, nothing more, 6 inches. His left hand gently redirected Victor's wrist. His right palm rested lightly against Victor's shoulder. Bruce whispered, "This is enough." Victor suddenly felt the world spinning. His own momentum betrayed him. His balance disappeared completely. Bruce's hips rotated, tiny, almost invisible. Yet somehow Victor's enormous body lifted completely off the platform again. This time, even the photographers saw it. Camera shutters exploded across the arena. Flash after flash illuminated the impossible scene. The undefeated heavyweight champion completely airborne, then crash. Victor slammed onto the platform even harder than before. The impact echoed through the building. The platform itself vibrated. Dust rose beneath the bright arena lights. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. 10,000 people sat frozen. The silence became overwhelming. Victor lay flat on his back. His eyes stared toward the ceiling, not because he couldn't stand, but because something inside him had broken, not his body, but his certainty. Bruce slowly walked closer. He stopped several feet away, never invading Victor's space, never standing over him. He simply waited. Victor finally looked up. "Why?" His voice was barely audible. "Why won't you finish me?" Bruce looked down at him. "Because you've already been defeated." Victor frowned. "I can still fight." Bruce nodded. "I know." "Then why stop?" Bruce's answer echoed through the silent arena. "Because I didn't come here to defeat a man." He paused. "I came here to give him one last chance to defeat his pride." Those words struck Victor harder than anything else that night. Tears slowly filled his eyes, not from pain, but from realization. He remembered every opponent he had mocked, every fighter he had humiliated, every bow he had refused, every handshake he had ignored. For 5 years, he had collected victories, but never respect. Slowly, he pushed himself onto his knees. The referee stepped closer. "Victor, do you wish to continue?" Victor looked at Bruce, then at the thousands of people watching. Finally, he slowly unclenched both fists. His shoulders relaxed, his head lowered, and before anyone could believe what they were seeing, the undefeated heavyweight champion bowed deeply to Bruce Lee. The arena gasped, because everyone understood the most important victory of the night had nothing to do with martial arts. It had everything to do with becoming a better man. The silence that followed was more powerful than any applause that had filled the arena before. And everyone knew Bruce Lee's final words would be remembered far longer than the fight itself. Victor Kaine remained on his knees. His head stayed lowered, not because Bruce Lee had forced him there, but because for the first time in nearly 5 years, his pride no longer had the strength to stand. The entire arena watched in complete silence. More than 10,000 people, not one voice, not one whisper. Even the television commentators had removed their headsets. None of them wanted to interrupt what was unfolding before their eyes. Bruce Lee looked at the bowed champion, then quietly bowed in return, just as deeply, just as respectfully. The audience gasped. Bruce wasn't bowing to Victor's victories. He was bowing to the courage it took for a proud man to admit he had been wrong. Victor slowly raised his head. His eyes were red, not from the throws, not from exhaustion, but from shame. "I mocked you," he whispered. "I insulted you, I kicked your chair, I pointed my finger in your face." His voice trembled. "And you still refused to hate me." Bruce smiled gently. "Hatred teaches nothing." Victor stared at him. "Then why did you accept my challenge?" Bruce looked around the arena at the children, at the students, at the elderly masters. Then he answered, "Because if I had walked away." Some young martial artist watching tonight might have believed that arrogance deserves silence. He paused. "I couldn't allow that lesson." Victor slowly stood. His shoulders no longer looked proud. They looked lighter, as though something heavy had finally fallen away. He picked up the microphone that had slipped onto the canvas. For several seconds, he simply held it, trying to find words. Finally, he spoke. "For almost 5 years, I believed I was the strongest fighter alive." He looked toward the thousands watching him. "I defeated 50 men." He cleared his throat. "I thought that made me unbeatable." He slowly shook his head. "I was wrong." The arena remained completely silent. "I defeated fighters, but I never defeated myself." His eyes turned toward Bruce. "This man never tried to destroy me. He destroyed something much worse, my arrogance." Several elderly martial arts masters quietly began applauding. Then another joined, then another. Within moments, the entire arena rose to its feet, not because Bruce Lee had won, not because Victor had lost, but because every person inside that building had just witnessed something they had never expected, an undefeated champion choosing humility over pride. Victor turned toward Bruce. "There is something I must do." Bruce nodded. Victor walked to the center of the platform. Then in front of every spectator, he removed his heavyweight championship belt, the same belt he had carried through 50 consecutive victories. He looked down at it for a long moment, then held it toward Bruce. "This belongs to you." The audience erupted. People expected Bruce to accept it. Photographers rushed closer. Camera flashes lit the arena like lightning. Bruce looked at the belt, then gently pushed it back. Victor frowned. "You earned it." Bruce smiled. "No, you did." Victor looked confused. "But you defeated me." Bruce slowly shook his head. "I didn't come here to become champion. I came here to remind you what being one truly means." The arena fell silent once again. Bruce gently rested one hand on Victor's shoulder. "A championship belt doesn't make a champion. The man wearing it does." Victor looked down. Tears rolled freely down his face. For the first time in years, he cried without embarrassment. The promoter slowly climbed into the ring. He had promoted fights across America for almost 3 decades. His voice shook. "I've seen hundreds of championships, hundreds of knockouts, hundreds of rivalries." He looked toward Bruce. "But tonight, I witnessed the greatest martial arts demonstration of my life." He turned toward the audience. There was only one clean throw. Only 2 men. And yet, every person in this arena learned something. Outside the arena, reporters crowded around Bruce Lee. Microphones stretched toward him from every direction. "Mr. Lee, how does it feel to defeat the undefeated champion?" Bruce stopped walking. He smiled politely. "I didn't defeat him." The reporters looked puzzled. One asked, "Then what happened inside the ring?" Bruce looked back toward the brightly lit arena. A good man remembered who he was. Then Bruce continued walking. No celebration, no interview, no victory speech. Just quiet footsteps disappearing into the California night. Victor remained inside the empty arena long after everyone had left. The workers folded chairs. Janitors swept the floor. The television crews packed away their cameras. Still, he sat alone on the edge of the platform, looking at his championship belt. Finally, an elderly Okinawan master approached him. The old man smiled. "You know, I've watched martial arts for over 50 years. Victor looked up. The master continued, "Tonight, you finally became dangerous." Victor frowned. "I lost." The old master shook his head. "No, tonight you became a student, and students never stop growing. The years passed. Victor Kaine fought again. He won many more matches, lost a few, and eventually retired. But something had changed forever. Every match began the same way. He bowed deeply. Every opponent received respect. Every defeated fighter received a helping hand. Young students often asked him, "What changed you?" Victor always smiled, then answered with the same sentence, "I once believed strength meant making people fear me." He looked toward the old championship belt hanging quietly on his dojo wall. "Bruce Lee taught me that true strength makes people better." Bruce Lee never spoke publicly about that fight again, not because he forgot it, but because to him it had never been about victory. Years later, during a seminar, a young student asked him, "What is the greatest fight you've ever won?" Bruce smiled, then quietly answered, "The one where nobody truly lost." The student looked confused. Bruce simply laughed. "One man lost his pride and gained wisdom. That is always a fair trade." Today, many people remember that autumn evening because an undefeated champion challenged Bruce Lee in front of more than 10,000 spectators. Martial artists remember it for a different reason. He cleared his throat. Not because of the throw, not because of the missed punches, not because of the undefeated record. They remember it because one arrogant champion pointed at a quiet man in the audience, expecting laughter. Instead, he found a teacher. A teacher who proved that the greatest martial artist is never the one who humiliates another person. He cleared his throat, but the one who leaves even an enemy wiser than before they met. And that is why, more than half a century later, people still tell the story of the night an undefeated champion publicly challenged Bruce Lee without realizing he had just challenged the one man who would forever change his life.